This story is titled, My Boyfriend Rejected My Proposal, so I ended our relationship and kicked him out of the apartment. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and makes sure you never miss out on amazing videos. All right, let's get started. Hey everyone. I'm Ruby, 30, female, and I guess you could say I've been going through it lately. So here's the thing. A few weeks ago, I proposed to my boyfriend of 4 years, Liam, 27, male, and it didn't go as planned. Actually, it went completely sideways, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what happened. Let me start with some background. Liam and I met through mutual friends at this small barbecue. We hit it off right away. Same sense of humor, similar life goals, and he was just easy to talk to. Over the years, we built this life together. We talked about everything: marriage, kids, our dream house. Liam would get excited about wedding stuff, even when we weren't actively planning anything. He'd send me links to engagement rings he liked, or point out wedding venues when we drove by. It wasn't constant or over the top, but it was clear he wanted that life with me, or so I thought. Fast forward to this year, our 4th anniversary. I figured, okay, it's time to make it official. I started planning the proposal months in advance because I wanted it to be special, not just for him, but for both of us. I'm not great at this romantic stuff, so I got help from my buddies Kevin and James. They've been my best friends since college, and they were hyped about the whole thing. We planned everything to the last detail. I booked this resort Liam had mentioned wanting to visit ages ago. It was a little pricey, but I figured it was worth it. Kevin and James helped me pick out the ring, a simple classic style because Liam's not into flashy stuff, and we set up this private dinner at the resort with candles, flowers, the whole 9 yards. Here's the part where it gets a little complicated. I didn't just plan a private moment. Liam's friends, Chloe and Anna, were in on it too. They were supposed to show up after the proposal with drinks and be part of the celebration. My buddies were going to be there too. It wasn't a huge crowd, but enough to make it feel special. The day of the proposal, everything seemed perfect. Liam was in a great mood. We spent the day relaxing, and I was nervous, but excited. When it was time for dinner, I got dressed up and tried to keep my cool. Liam looked amazing, and I couldn't stop thinking about how lucky I was. So we get to the setup. Candles, flowers, soft music playing in the background. I made this little speech about how much he meant to me, and then I got down on one knee. I held up the ring and asked him to marry me. And that's when everything went wrong. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no either. He just froze for what felt like forever. Finally, he said, "Ruby, I need more time." It felt like the vibes got completely wrecked. I couldn't even process what he was saying. His friends, my friends, everyone was there, and I could feel them all staring at us. I felt embarrassed, confused, and honestly pretty hurt. Liam started apologizing right away, saying he wasn't saying no. He just wasn't ready yet, and that he needed more time. But by that point, I wasn't really listening. I was just trying to keep it together and not completely fall apart in front of everyone. Kevin and James tried to keep things light, joking around to ease the tension, but it didn't help. Chloe and Anna looked just as uncomfortable as I felt. Liam kept apologizing and I kept nodding, pretending like everything was fine, but inside I was a mess. We left the dinner early. The car ride back to the hotel was completely silent. I was staring out the window, replaying the whole thing in my head, while Liam was sitting next to me, probably doing the same. I couldn't even look at him. When we got back to the room, he tried to explain himself again. He said he needed more time to think, that it wasn't about me, and that he just wasn't in the right headspace for a big decision like marriage. But none of it made sense to me. We'd talked about this stuff for years. He knew I was serious about him, and he'd always acted like he was serious about me too. I asked him straight up, "Do you even want to marry me?" He said yes, but he wasn't ready to say yes right now. And honestly, that answer felt like a slap in the face. You either want to marry someone or you don't, right? It shouldn't be that complicated. We barely spoke the rest of the trip. I felt embarrassed, not just for myself, but for involving all our friends. It was supposed to be this beautiful, life-changing moment, and instead, it felt like a total disaster. When we got back home, things didn't get any better. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. Was it me? Did I move too fast? Did I miss some kind of sign that he wasn't ready? I started replaying our relationship in my head, overanalyzing every conversation, every moment, looking for something I might have overlooked. Liam, on the other hand, acted like everything was fine. He'd bring me coffee in the morning, ask me how my day was, and try to make small talk, but it all felt off, like we were pretending nothing had happened. I didn't tell anyone about the proposal right away. Not my parents, not my coworkers, no one. The only people who knew were the ones who were there, and even then, I didn't want to talk about it. I felt like such an idiot for thinking everything was perfect when clearly it wasn't. But I reached out to my sister Jenna. She's always been the bold one in the family, the type to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I figured if anyone could give me some perspective, it'd be her. Little did I know, she was about to make things even more confusing. When I called Jenna, I wasn't even sure how to explain what had happened. It felt embarrassing to admit, like I'd somehow failed, but she could tell something was up as soon as I said, "Hey, you got a minute?" She didn't waste any time jumping straight to, "What's wrong?" So I told her all of it. The proposal, Liam's reaction, the silence in the car afterward, and how awkward things had been since we got back. By the time I finished, I was pacing around my apartment, my heart racing like it had all just happened again. There was this long pause on the other end of the line, and I was bracing myself for Jenna to tell me I was overreacting. Instead, she said, "Ruby, I don't want to freak you out, but what Liam did, that's kind of a red flag." I stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "Look, when someone hesitates on a proposal, it's usually not just nerves. There's something else going on. Either he's not sure about you, or there's someone else in the picture." My stomach dropped. Someone else? Are you serious right now? I couldn't believe it. Like, how could he be thinking of someone else after staying together for 4 years? And I'm being committed and actually proposed to him. "I'm not saying he's definitely cheating or anything," Jenna said quickly. "But think about it. You've been together for 4 years, Ruby. 4 years. He knew this was coming. It's not like you blindsided him. And if he's not ready now, what's he waiting for?" Her words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I didn't want to believe Liam could be hiding something like that from me, but I couldn't ignore the way Jenna's explanation made sense. Liam and I had always been solid, or at least I thought we were, but now I was questioning everything. "Maybe I rushed it," I said, trying to defend Liam, or maybe myself. "Maybe he really just needs time to process." "Ruby, come on," Jenna said, her voice firm. "Do you really believe that? You've been dropping hints for months. You booked a whole trip just to propose. If he wasn't ready, he should have told you before you got down on one knee in front of all those people." Jenna honestly had a point. Liam had always been straightforward with me about what he wanted, or at least he used to be. Lately, though, things had felt different. I started telling Jenna about the little things that had been bothering me, how Liam had been working late more often, how he'd started going out with his friends more, how his phone was always on silent. I hadn't thought much of it at the time because I trusted him, but now with Jenna's words in my head, it all seemed suspicious. "Ruby, I hate to say this, but it sounds like classic hedge your bets," Jenna said. "It's when someone hesitates because they're keeping their options open. He's not ready to commit to you because he's not sure you're the only one he wants." I didn't know what to say. The idea of Liam keeping his options open had me going nuts. He wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my best friend, my partner, the person I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. The thought of him hiding something like that from me made me feel sick, but at the same time, I couldn't just accuse him of something without proof. What if Jenna was wrong? What if Liam really was just overwhelmed or scared? "I don't know, Jenna," I said finally. "It feels wrong to jump to conclusions. I mean, he's never given me a reason not to trust him." "Has he, though?" Jenna asked. "Think about it. Has he been acting differently lately?" I thought back to the past few months, the late nights, the weekends away, the guarded phone. It all seems so obvious now, but at the time, I'd brushed it off. I trusted Liam. I truly loved him. I didn't want to believe he was capable of hurting me like that. "Maybe," I admitted. "But what am I supposed to do? Go through his phone? Spy on him? I feel like that would be so stupid." "No," Jenna said firmly. "That's not who you are, and it's not who you want to be. But you need to pay attention, Ruby. If there's something going on, he'll slip up eventually." I didn't want to hear it. I wanted Jenna to tell me I was overthinking everything, that Liam just needed time and everything would be fine. But deep down, I knew she was right. Something was off, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. After we hung up, I sat on the couch, staring at the ring I'd planned to give Liam. It was still in its little velvet box, untouched since that night at the resort. I couldn't believe I actually thought everything was all good when it clearly wasn't. What made it worse was how Liam started watching me like he was trying to read my mood or figure out what I was thinking. Whenever we were in the same room, I could feel his eyes on me. Sometimes he'd ask if I was okay, but it wasn't in a casual way. It felt loaded, like he was fishing for reassurance. At first, I didn't respond much. I was too frustrated and confused to talk about it. But the more he kept trying to gauge how I felt, the angrier I got. It wasn't just that he was asking, it was the way he did it, like he already knew he'd hurt me and was looking for a way to make himself feel better about it. He dropped these small, almost apologetic comments like, "You've been quiet lately," or, "I feel like we haven't talked much." Once he even said, "I hate that things feel weird between us." I didn't know how to respond to that. Things didn't feel weird. They were weird. And the fact that he kept tiptoeing around it instead of addressing it directly made me feel worse. It was like he wanted me to fix something he'd broken. The next few days were brutal. Liam acted like nothing had happened, like we were fine. But I couldn't stop analyzing every little thing he said or did. When he went out with his friends, I wondered if he was really with them. When he came home late from work, I wondered if he'd really been at the office. I hated myself for thinking that way. Liam had always been so good to me, so supportive and loving. But now, every time I looked at him, I saw doubt. The worst part was not knowing. Not knowing if Jenna was right. Not knowing if Liam was hiding something. Not knowing if I'd ever be able to trust him again. I felt stuck, like I was living in this limbo where nothing made sense anymore. I loved Liam, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong besides that awful incident. And the longer it went on, the more it ate away at me. Tell me, guys, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Update 1. Thank you all for your comments. I didn't expect this to blow up. Here's what happened lately. I didn't know that things were only going to get more complicated since my last post. A few days after my conversation with Jenna, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Hedging bets sounded like some kind of made-up thing, but Jenna wasn't the type to throw around baseless ideas, and the way she explained it, it stuck in my head like glue. I found myself overanalyzing everything Liam had done over the last few months. I wasn't proud of it, but I couldn't turn it off. Liam, on the other hand, acted like nothing had changed. He was still polite, still affectionate, in that casual way we'd always been with each other, but there was this invisible wall between us now. We didn't talk about the proposal or the trip, and I wasn't about to bring it up. Instead, I started noticing more. He was glued to his phone more than usual, and whenever I'd casually glance his way, he'd lock the screen or flip it face down. It didn't feel right. I started paying attention to the way he'd hesitate before answering certain questions, how he'd keep his explanations short, almost rushed, when I asked how his day was. But even then, I couldn't be sure. I kept telling myself there were other explanations. Maybe he was embarrassed about the proposal. Maybe he was overwhelmed and didn't know how to deal with it. Maybe I was just being paranoid because of what Jenna had planted in my head. Then Jenna flipped the switch. She texted me. I was at work pretending to focus on emails, but really just staring at my screen, replaying the last few weeks in my head. The notification popped up. We need to talk about Liam. I heard something. My stomach sank. Jenna wasn't one for drama or vague messages, so I knew this wasn't going to be good. I stepped out of the office and called her right away. She didn't waste time. I was talking to one of my friends, and Liam's name came up. Apparently, he's been spending a lot of time with someone from work. Like, a lot. I didn't say anything at first. My mind was racing, trying to connect dots that hadn't even been there 5 seconds ago. What does that mean? I finally asked. Jenna explained that her friend, who worked in a different department at Liam's company, had mentioned seeing Liam out at lunch with this woman more than a few times. Nothing suspicious on the surface, but Jenna's friend thought it was odd because apparently they looked close. I didn't know what to do with that information. Lunch with a coworker didn't mean anything, right? People go to lunch with coworkers all the time. But Jenna's friend wasn't just some random person. She was reliable, honest. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a coincidence. That night, I tried to act normal around Liam, but it felt impossible. Every time his phone buzzed, every time he mentioned work, I found myself wondering if he was talking to her, whoever she was. He mentioned a late meeting the next day, and instead of just nodding like I usually did, I felt this knot in my stomach. After Liam went to bed, I stayed up thinking about everything Jenna had told me. If I confronted Liam, what was I even going to say? Hey, I heard from my sister's friend that you've been hanging out with some woman from work. Is there something you want to tell me? It sounded ridiculous, like I was grasping at straws, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore it. The next day, I decided to call Jenna again. I needed more context, more details, something concrete to go on. When I asked, she hesitated at first, like she didn't want to make things worse. But eventually, she admitted that her friend had seen Liam and the woman at a coffee shop after work once. And it wasn't just any coffee shop. It was one Liam and I used to go to all the time when we first started dating. That hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't proof of anything, but it felt intentional, like a small piece of our life together had been used for something else, something that didn't include me. I started questioning every decision I'd made in the past few weeks. Should I have paid more attention? Should I have asked more questions? Maybe Jenna's theory wasn't just some random idea. Maybe it was the explanation I didn't want to believe but couldn't ignore. By the weekend, I felt like I was losing my grip. Liam had been distant all week, but not in an obvious way. He still smiled at me, still asked about my day, but there was this detachment, like he was going through the motions. Jenna texted me again on Sunday. You need to talk to him. If he's hiding something, he's not going to admit it unless you push. But I didn't know how to push without crossing a line. I didn't want to be the woman who accuses her boyfriend of something without evidence. At the same time, I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine. I was in a tough position, but I felt like soon I would make my decision. I'll keep you updated. Update 2. Hey guys. First off, thank you for all the support and advice on my last post. I've spent the past few days trying to process everything, your perspective, and I decided to confront Liam like most of you suggested. But let me tell you what happened before that. After a few days since Jenna sent me that text, I'd had enough. The tension in the apartment was suffocating, and I wasn't going to keep it low. Liam was going through his routines like we were fine, like his brushing off my proposal wasn't the giant red flag that it clearly was. I couldn't pretend anymore, couldn't just sit there like I was okay with being treated as some backup plan while he figured out his life. I'd spent weeks replaying that moment, me on one knee, pouring my heart out, and him looking at me like I was asking for a favor instead of committing to a future together. It wasn't just about the hesitation. It was about what it meant. He was still unsure about me, not even after 4 years, not after everything we'd built. I mean, how many years does he need to make sure I'm the one? That's ridiculous. And now he was distant, quiet, and acting like he had no clue what the problem was. That night after dinner, I sat across from him at the table. He was scrolling on his phone like he always did, completely checked out. I wasn't going to wait for the right moment. This was the moment. We need to talk, I said, leaning forward. He glanced up, caught off guard. About what? Are you seeing someone else? I asked, flat out. His jaw dropped. He set his phone down slowly like he was trying to buy time. What are you talking about? Why would you even ask me that? Because nothing about us feels right anymore, I said, my tone sharp. You've been distant for weeks. You shut me out after the proposal, and now it feels like you're just waiting for something better or someone better. And if that's what's happening, I need to know. His face hardened. You really think I'd cheat on you? Maybe not outright, I said, folding my arms. But let's not act like this coworker of yours hasn't come up. Jenna told me about the coffee shop. You didn't tell me you were spending time with her. Why is that? Liam let out a sharp breath like he was trying to keep his composure. Because it's not a big deal, he said. We're working on a project together, that's all it is. Then why hide it? I asked, leaning forward. Why keep it a secret if it's so innocent? I wasn't hiding it, he snapped. I just didn't think you needed to know every detail of my work life. That's not the point, Liam, I said, my voice rising. The point is, you've been acting like I'm the only one fighting for this relationship, and I'm done with it. If this woman isn't a big deal, fine. But you didn't say yes to my proposal. You asked for more time. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? How it felt to stand there thinking I'd planned this perfect moment only for you to tell me you weren't ready? I wasn't ready, he said, his voice defensive. And I told you that it's not because of someone else. It's because I needed to think. Think about what? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're thinking about whether or not you even want to be with me. And if that's the case, just say it. Don't string me along while you figure out your life. I'm not stringing you along, he said. I've been trying to sort through everything in my head, but you're making this into something it's not. Don't gaslight me, I said, my voice cold. You've been pulling away from me for weeks. And if it's not because of this woman, then what is it? Because I'm tired of the guessing games. Liam stood up, crossing his arms. You want to know why I hesitated? He said. Fine. I hesitated because marriage is a big deal, because it's permanent, and I wasn't sure I was ready to make that commitment. Not because of you, not because of anyone else, because of me. His words hit me, but they didn't land the way he probably thought they would. I stood up too, meeting his gaze. So what you're saying is after 4 years, you're still not sure about me? That's not what I'm saying, he said quickly. I love you, Ruby. I do. But I wasn't ready for that moment. Well, I was, I said, my tone sharp, and I thought we were on the same page. I wouldn't have asked you if I thought for a second that you didn't feel the same way. It took me only 6 months to be sure about you, but I gave it more time for you to feel ready. But now I'm questioning everything. I'm questioning if you even see a future with me, or if I'm just the person you're settling for while you figure out your options. Liam's face fell, but I wasn't about to back down. You've made me feel like I'm not enough, I continued. Like I'm just here to fill a void until you decide what you really want. And I can't live like that, Liam. I deserve better. I never meant to make you feel that way, he said quietly. But you did, I said. And now I have to decide if I can even stay in this relationship, knowing that I'm not your first choice. His eyes widened slightly, and for the first time I saw real fear in them. Ruby, you are my choice. I've just been confused. I cut him off. Yeah, I get it. But here's the thing. I'm not confused. I know what I want. I want someone who's sure about me. Someone who doesn't need time to decide if I'm worth committing to. And if you can't be that person, then I don't know what we're doing here. Liam didn't respond. He just stood there, his expression a mix of guilt and frustration. The silence stretched between us, heavy and unrelenting. Finally, I stepped back. I'm going to give you some time to think, I said, but I'm not going to wait forever. If you can't give me a real answer soon, an answer that tells me you're all in, then I'm done. With that, I left the room, heading to the bedroom to clear my mind. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I'd taken control of the situation. Whether Liam stayed or not, I wasn't going to keep feeling like a second option. Whatever was going to happen next, it was going to be on my terms. Final update. Hey guys, thought I'd give you an update since most of you are asking what I did. Well, honestly, I wasn't proud of how heated things got, but at the same time, I didn't regret saying what I needed to say. For weeks, hell, maybe months, I'd been bottling up all this frustration and confusion. The proposal, the hesitation, his distance afterward, and now this shadow of doubt hovering over us. I couldn't ignore it anymore, and asking him directly about the coworker had been inevitable. The thing that bothered me the most wasn't even his vague answer about her. It was his overall hesitation about us, about marriage, about everything. I wasn't asking him to marry me tomorrow. I just needed to know that we were heading in the same direction. His saying he wasn't ready felt like he wasn't ready for me. After sitting there for a while, I decided I needed to clear my head. I didn't want to call Jenna. I needed to hear from someone else. So I texted Kevin since he was in the proposal and knew what happened. Hey, can we talk? Need some advice. Kevin was one of those friends who didn't sugarcoat things, and that's what I needed right now. When he called me a few minutes later, I stepped out onto the balcony to avoid waking Liam, even though I doubted he was sleeping after our fight. I filled him in on everything, Liam's hesitation after the proposal, his recent distance, and the conversation we just had. Kevin let me vent without interrupting, which was exactly what I needed. When I finally finished, he sighed. Ruby, I'm going to be honest with you. You're doing the right thing by standing up for yourself. If he's not sure about you after 4 years, that's a problem. I get that marriage is a big step, but he should at least want to take that step with you. The fact that he's hesitating, that's not something you can just ignore. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I know, but it's hard. I don't want to just throw away everything we've built, you know? I get it, he said. But you also don't want to spend years with someone who's not all in. You deserve better than that. I ended the call and walked back into the living room. Liam was still sitting on the couch, clutching a blanket like it was his shield against what was coming. His phone was still untouched on the table, the light from the TV flickering over his face. He looked up as I walked in, his eyes darting to me nervously. For weeks I'd been holding back, giving him space, trying to understand his hesitation, but after everything, it was clear I couldn't keep doing this. We need to talk, I said. He nodded, his hands twisting the edge of the blanket. I know, he said softly. I sat down, trying to be reasonable. Liam, I started, I've been patient. I've been giving you time, trying to figure out what's going on with us, but I'm at my limit. You've been distant ever since the proposal. I've tried to understand. I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt, but it feels like you're not even trying anymore. He didn't say anything, his eyes glued to the blanket in his lap. I need to know, I continued, my voice tightening. Are you in this or not? Because I can't keep waking up every day wondering if you're just waiting for a better option to come along. It's not like that, he said quickly, looking up at me. Then what is it like, Liam? I shot back. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels a hell of a lot like I'm being strung along while you figure out your life, and I can't do that anymore. I won't. Ruby, he said, his voice low. I don't know how to say this. Just say it, I said, my tone sharp. Whatever it is, just say it for God's sake. I'm done with the games. So he hit me with it. I've been seeing someone, he admitted, his words barely audible. I froze. I thought I'd misheard him, but then the weight of his words hit me like a sledgehammer. What? I said. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with guilt and tears. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said quickly. It happened, and I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. At that point, I lost it. There was no way I was taking this calmly. Didn't want to hurt me, I repeated, my voice rising. You didn't want to hurt me, so you decided to sneak around behind my back instead, playing with me until I get down on one knee and propose only for you to say, I'm not sure? Do you even hear yourself, Liam? I'm not with her, he said desperately. I'm not sure about her either. That's the problem. I don't know what I want, Ruby. You don't know what you want, I said, standing up abruptly. After 4 years, after everything we've built together, you don't know what you want. Do you have any idea how pathetic that sounds? He flinched, but I didn't care. I was done holding back. I was ready to spend my life with you, I continued, my voice shaking with anger. I was ready to build a future with you. And while I was planning our next steps, you were out not being sure about someone else. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is for me? I didn't mean for it to get this far, he said, tears streaming down his face. No, you didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, I said, cutting him off. You let it happen, and then you sat here day after day pretending like everything was fine while you ripped this relationship apart behind my back. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. Sorry? I said bitterly. You're sorry? Do you think that changes anything? Do you think that fixes the fact that you've been lying to me? That you've been lying to yourself? He didn't respond, just sat there shaking. I can't do this anymore, I said, my tone colder now. You're not sure about her? Fine. But the fact that you were even in a position to make that comparison tells me everything I need to know about where we stand. Ruby, please, he said, standing up now, reaching toward me. We can work through this. I'll stop seeing her. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. No, Liam, I said firmly, stepping back. You don't get to fix this. You don't get to sit here and decide now, after everything, that I'm the one you want. His face crumpled, but I didn't let it sway me. Get out of my apartment, I said, my voice like steel. His eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Ruby, please don't do this. You did this, I said, pointing at him. You made this choice the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. You made this choice the moment you let someone else into our relationship. So don't stand here and act like I'm the bad guy. Pack your things and go. He hesitated, but when he saw the resolve in my face, he nodded slowly. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the bedroom. I stood there, listening as he packed his things, my heart heavy, but resolute. When he finally walked out the door, he paused, looking at me one last time. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't respond. I just closed the door behind him, locking it and leaning against it as the weight of everything settled over me. The apartment was quiet now, but for the first time in weeks, the silence felt like peace. That night, he left my life. I called Jenna just to assure her it wasn't the coworker we'd been debating. It was another woman. Writing this now seems pathetic and laughable. Anyway, I told her everything, how Liam admitted to seeing someone else, but claimed it wasn't serious, and how I couldn't stay in a relationship with someone who treated me like an option. Jenna was shocked at the beginning, but also supportive. You did the right thing. You deserve better. A few days later, I got a call from Liam's sister, Laya. She wanted to know what happened. I explained everything, his hesitation at the proposal, his confession, and my decision to end things. To my surprise, Leia said, I'm sorry, Ruby, you didn't deserve that. Liam's been lost lately, and I hope he figures himself out, but you made the right choice. Since then, I've been focusing on myself. I sold that doomed engagement ring. It felt like holding on to a very bad memory in my life, so there was no need for it. The money's in savings now, a reminder to invest in my future instead of clinging to the past. It hasn't been easy. Some days I replay everything in my head, wondering if I could have done something differently. But deep down, I know this wasn't about me. Liam's hesitation and choices were his, not a reflection of my worth. I'm not ready to date again yet, but that's okay. For now, I'm taking time to heal and rebuild. To everyone who's been following my story, thank you. Your advice and support gave me the strength to stand up for myself. If you're in a similar situation, trust your instincts. You deserve someone who's all in. No doubts, no hesitation. It's hard to let go, but sometimes it's the only way forward. Life isn't perfect, but I'm learning to embrace the uncertainty one day at a time. That was the end of Liam and me. The first morning I woke up alone in the apartment, it felt surreal. His toothbrush was gone, the side of the closet where his clothes hung was empty, and the silence was almost jarring. But instead of breaking down, I made myself coffee, sat by the window, and just breathed. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself. The next few weeks were tough, I won't lie. There were moments when I wanted to text him, to ask if he was okay, or to beg him to explain again. But every time I felt that urge, I remembered the look on his face when he confessed he'd been seeing someone else. I remembered the way my heart sank, how betrayed I felt, and how small he made me feel by hesitating at the one moment that should have been filled with certainty. And that was enough to stop me. Jenna checked in on me constantly. She'd call after work or drop by on weekends, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just a bottle of wine and her presence. She reminded me that I wasn't alone, that I had people who loved me and wanted the best for me. One night she said something that stuck with me. "Ruby, you thought Liam was your whole future, but maybe he was just the lesson you needed to learn before building the future you actually deserve." That hit me harder than I expected. For weeks I'd been framing the breakup as a failure, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a turning point. So I threw myself into self-growth. I signed up for a yoga class, something I'd been curious about, but always put off because Liam thought it was boring. I started cooking again, experimenting with recipes I used to love but stopped making because Liam was picky. I even painted one wall of my bedroom a deep emerald green, just because I wanted to, no one else's opinion involved. Work became a focus too. Instead of dragging myself through the days, I put in energy, volunteered for new projects, and found myself rediscovering passions I'd neglected while trying to keep the relationship afloat. My boss noticed, and for the first time in months, I actually felt proud of myself again. There were lonely nights, of course. Nights when the bed felt too big, or when I saw couples holding hands on the street and felt a sharp ache in my chest. But instead of spiraling, I leaned into the discomfort. I journaled. I talked to Jenna. I reminded myself that healing isn't supposed to be easy. The ring money stayed untouched in my savings account. Every time I saw the balance, I felt a strange mix of pain and empowerment. It wasn't wasted, it was transformed. A symbol of what I'd survived. As for Liam, I heard through the grapevine that things with the other woman didn't last long. It didn't even sting when Jenna told me. In fact, it confirmed what I already knew. His uncertainty was never about me. It was about him, his inability to commit, to be honest, to show up fully in the relationship. And that was no longer my burden to carry. Months later, I stood in front of the mirror one morning and barely recognized myself, not because I looked different, but because I felt different, stronger, lighter. I wasn't waiting for someone else's approval or direction. I was making choices for me, and that was enough. So no, I didn't end up with a fiancé or a wedding date or a picture-perfect story. What I ended up with was far more valuable: my self-respect, my independence, and a life I was finally learning to live on my own terms. And honestly, that feels like the best kind of happily ever after.